So how did I do? Well, on the Matt Hughes Forum Sickie contest, I came just below average. Unfortunately, I was the lowest scorer there. Something went wrong with the fight lockdown thing. When I came to do a distribution of my video, there was no sign-up thread, so I just sent my picks to Viking Pride, and somehow a sign-up thread appeared afterwards and everybody else got in but not me. I don't think it would matter because I don't think I would have done that well. I'm not bad on the finish shells. I am 52nd. A lot of people that were higher than me have dropped this last event. A lot of people sort of didn't do very well. Somehow in their Grand Prix that they're doing, I am now in the semi-finals, so I've got quite a long way, considering how many of us there were to begin with. So all in all, yeah, not the greatest showing, I'm afraid. Do you know, through breeding budgies, well, I haven't bred budgies, I've bred finches, but through keeping budgies, one of the things you learn after a while is that budgies are born with the ability to hide very, very well when they are ill or injured. And the reason they do this is because in the wild, obviously, if they look ill, or they appear ill, or they appear injured, they're more likely to be A, abandoned by the flock, and B, snagged by a predator. So they always put their best foot forward. And even if you're a keeper of budgies, you have to know the personality very, very well to spot when they are unwell or injured, because they will try to hide it. And that's exactly what Urijah Faber actually managed to do for a full 5 rounds. Right at the start, if you're used to Urijah Faber, you will know that he was very, very cautious for what he usually is. Everybody made a big thing about him being frightened of the leg kicks, and that did show. But if you watch him, he's bouncing around quite easily during the first round. If you watch the 5th round, he's still sort of bouncing, but it's extremely flat-footed. You know, one might, I suppose, wash that off as being, you know, well, 5 rounds later he's a lot tireder. But we know the truth, and that's that he hurt himself in the first round, or rather, he was injured in the first round, and he made a remarkable sort of, not recovery, because it's not recovered, but he covered it. The fact that it had happened extremely well. In fact, I read the reports before I watched the fight, and had I just watched the fight, I would just have said, I think he got, you know, a bit tired, and his fear of the leg kicks stopped him from engaging. But if you watch the first round properly, you will see that, as well as bouncing around, it's Urijah that takes the lead in jumping in every so often to try and attack. That is until the knee that breaks his rib. Now, he stumbles a little, but it's nothing more, I suppose, if you're watching it, than just thinking that's the reaction to the force of the blow. We know now that he broke his rib at that point. Didn't mention it to his camp during the first sort of bit between rounds, because they focused on him and he didn't say a word about it. So that's very, very interesting. And I didn't see him touch it at all. You know, that's the sort of thing that you would do if it was causing you problems, sort of thing. He hid it extremely well. And I'm not sure I would not have known had I not specifically been looking at that. The other thing that I'm impressed with Urijah Faber about, although he lost, was some of the things he said afterwards. Firstly, I have to say I have particularly no time for interim belts anyway. I think they're a waste of time. I think you either, you know, wait for the champion or you strip him of his belt, one or the other. Obviously, because he has now failed in this attempt, he is not going to be first in line to challenge for the title when Aldo gets back, which is probably a big thing, of course, unless Aldo's out for long enough for Renan to take another fight and possibly fail. The other thing that I didn't hear him mention was instant rematch, and I think that's actually quite good. Because we've had the case last summer where we were just having instant rematches followed by instant rematches, and it was a load of bull. Didn't need it half the time. So there we are. I don't know. He lost, but I was quite impressed by the way he handled it. I'm also impressed that he didn't immediately say, or he didn't answer those who said, "Oh, you should move down," because that's the other thing that people tend to do. You know, contenders failed. Don't bother retrying. Don't go back to base and work all the way back up again. Leave the division altogether. And I don't think that's always necessary. Not necessarily half as much as it actually happens. So that's my thought on the main event there. I have to say that right from the start, Daniel Pineda just didn't seem to be anywhere near as good. Okay, you can excuse the slip, possibly, that nearly ended in what looked like a guillotine submission, possibly. But, you know, the other guy gave that up. And I'm not sure you can say that for the sort of 2 or 3 other times that he ended up on his arse. So that was a poor pick from me, wasn't it? I quite enjoyed the Roland Delorme fight. Although I thought he'd be slightly better on the feet. I did say I thought that he was going to go to ground, and I think he sort of tried at one point, but I think it was more like he had been struck one too many times and was a little bit desperate, and he didn't manage to get it to the ground anyway. A lot of wrestler types will, if they end up in trouble striking, will just sort of try and charge, basically. And he tried that and it didn't work. I kind of wish that had gone into the second, just purely because I was quite enjoying it. He never had the upper hand, did Delorme, but there was a certain amount of heart there, I think, because he was getting hit by combinations and still coming back. So I enjoyed that one. Wish it had been longer. I don't know why people chose to boo in the match between Brian Caraway and Mitch Gagnon. Now, okay, a lot of it took place on the ground, but it was always active. You know, all the way through after the first round, which was not quite so good. Brian Caraway was just looking for a choke submission. Finally, he got it in the middle of the third round after sort of spending the second round basically trying to get it. So at least that was one fight that went my way. You know, I do think I don't condone boos at all. I do think some of the later bouts were not so enjoyable. Wouldn't blame the institution for that particularly, but I don't see why the audience reacted quite so badly to that fight, really. I do wish that some of these fighters would stop doing these spinning stupid things, because 9 out of 10 times they don't connect. And 9 out of 10 times when they don't connect, they end you in a seriously bad position. We've seen it happen several times, so let this be a lesson to people like Chris Clements, for example. I will give Matt Riddle his due. He was far better in this fight than I've possibly seen him in any of his previous fights. I still don't like him. and I still think it's a shame that he won. But it is, you can't deny that he did, and that he got a finish. So well done to him. Dana White took his frustration out, mainly on the fight between Cheick Kongo and Sean Jordan. I have to say that I enjoyed that fight better than the Hector Lombard one. I think it takes more skill as well to be able to go 3 rounds where you are constantly using your strength to maintain your position, rather than sort of jumping in and out with a couple of sort of kicks and a couple of sort of punches and then sort of dancing around for another sort of 5 minutes or whatever. I do think that there are 2 things that could have improved this fight. The first thing is, I think it became quite obvious by the end of the first round that Sean Jordan was not really going to get sufficient takedown ability by using that sort of clinch work with Cheick Kongo. I don't really know why he tried again in the second, and again in the third. I think the other thing that could have improved this fight is Cheick Kongo perhaps going for some sort of submission, most notably the guillotine, possibly during this sort of sprawl. There's plenty of opportunity for that sort of thing. You know, perhaps he didn't want to do that because it would, you know, unbalance him and he would end up being taken down. I don't know. Now, Dana White has also criticised the referee here. Now, I think that's very, very difficult, because in one way, unlike boxing, you don't just break up a clinch. On second thoughts, it wasn't a clinch that was particularly a stance of Thai boxing, for example. It wasn't dirty boxing. You know, there weren't particularly knees a lot of the time. It really was a sort of almost a Greco-Roman type clinch, where they were literally just going strength for strength, trying to get the other person down. I think I would say that the referee should possibly have broken it up a little bit more than he did. But I think it's way harsh to say, oh, it's completely his fault. You know, that's like saying it's completely somebody's fault not standing up the person when there's lay and pray going on. Whereas if they're, you know, doing a little bit of ground and pound in between times and they're keeping active, then actually the referee, however much he doesn't like it, can't particularly stop it. Like I said before, I understand the boos and why they happened there, but I just don't condone that sort of thing. So there we are. The fighter of the card is going to have to go to Ryan Jimmo, I'm afraid. I know some people think maybe it should go to somebody who has more than 7 seconds worth of action in the UFC, I don't know. But I thought his knockout was fantastic. And I kind of laughed at the way he cheated Goldie out of introducing the fight clock. It was all over by the time he'd finished saying "sponsored by."